हेलो माय डियर फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम टू बाइजूस एग्जाम प्रेप। जैसा कि आप बहुत लोग बाइक चलाते हैं, स्कूटी चलाते हैं, देयर इज अ मेजर डिफरेंस बिटवीन बाइक एंड स्कूटी। इस बाइक में जैसे आप देखते हैं गियर ट्रांसमिशन होता है जिसमें आप गियर शिफ्ट करके यू आर एबल टू अचीव अ सर्टेन स्पीड। अगर मैं स्कूटी की बात करूं, आप कभी भी ऐसा टेंशन नहीं होता कि भाई स्कूटी में आपको गियर चेंज करना है, जस्ट यू हैव टू एक्सेलरेट। अब इस वीडियो में हम लोग ये जानेंगे कि क्या ऐसा चेंज है कि भाई गियर्स और गियरलेस ट्रांसमिशन में, जिसको हम लोग सीवीटी बोलते हैं, कंटिन्यूस वेरिएबल ट्रांसमिशन, उसके बारे में डिटेल में देखेंगे आगे इस वीडियो में कि कैसे स्कूटी में इजीली वी विल बी एबल टू एक्सेलरेट एंड विल बी एबल टू ट्रांसमिट पावर फ्रॉम इनपुट टू आउटपुट। सो लेट्स सी इन द नेक्स्ट वीडियो. So let's continue our discussion ki what is the basic difference between a CVT and your conventional gearbox in any IC engine, and why we are now shifting from that conventional standard gearbox to a CVT. What is the major advantage? And in like it's not like the one or two models. Many models of Toyota, Nissan, even Honda actually are implementing this power transmission system. So let us continue our discussion to know about in detail. Now, we know that in CVT, that is continuous variable transmission, in this case, what happens is we are able to achieve a variable velocity ratio. Now, what is a velocity ratio? Velocity ratio is nothing but, if I see in a very simpler words, whenever I'm talking about a gear tree, okay, let's suppose there is a gear, right, and this is a second gear, okay, it is rotating with some RPM N1, this is rotating with some RPM N2. So what happens is, we always try to increase or decrease the velocity ratio according to the requirement. Let us suppose whenever you are shifting in gear number 1, gear number 1 में आप देखेंगे the power is less but the RPM is very high. So that is the reason when you are driving your even two-wheeler or the four-wheeler in the first or second gear for a longer duration, what happens, the engine actually becomes very the heated up. Okay, the reason being क्योंकि engine बहुत तेज it is rotating the RPM, but the torque that we are getting is very less क्योंकि छोटा gear वहाँ पे rotate करता है, small gear is rotating, right? So whenever we are shifting from first to second, the second to third in a conventional gearbox, we are increasing the torque and ultimately we are getting the higher power is being obtained at the output. But इसमें क्या problem है in gear conventional gearbox? We are actually getting a standard value. अगर मान लीजिए if we are having a gear like 1:2 or 1:3, so we only get a amplified value of 1:2 or 1:3 only. जो velocity ratio which is being preset value, जो भी कोई gears we are manufacturing or we are installing in any conventional gearbox, we always have a fixed velocity ratio. But in a CVT, we can alter the value of velocity ratio according to our requirement. Nowadays, you might have seen that there is a economical mode. When you press that, in highways we try to go in that economical mode, and our efficiency of the vehicle is actually increasing. We are having a power mode also, in which we are not bothered about efficiency, we are only bothered about the power at the output. Okay, so that kind of variable options is only available, we can say, in under the CVT transmission. So let us see what are the main components in this. Now this is a conventional gearbox in which, if you see clearly, we are able to change the gear and the power is basically moving from left to right. Okay, so according to the we can say combination of different gears, we are altering the value of RPM. ठीक है, जैसे मान लीजिए this is a smaller gear is being in mesh. So what happens, smaller gear mesh मतलब we can say high RPM, less torque. But if a higher or bigger gear is meshing, less RPM, higher torque will be obtained. And actually we require that at the high we can say gears like 5th, 6th gear, we are cruising at a speed of 70 or 90 or 100, even 120 kilometer per hour. But if I talk about first and second gear, we only try to limit like max to max 10 15 kilometer per hour. That's it. We try to change the gear. ठीक है, अगर आप ज्यादा देर उसको उसी आरपीएम में घुमाएंगे वन और सेकंड गियर, then what happens, the engine gets burned out. Okay, the temperature is very high. Right, now if I talk about the main components of CVT, there are basically three main components. One is the input shaft, second is the steel belt, and third is the output shaft. In very simplest way, you will be able to understand the continuous variable transmission. Input shaft, a steel belt which is basically connecting the input and output, and we are having an output shaft which is actually running with a low RPM. Now what happens is, in a conventional gearbox, they was connected with the help of a gear. Okay, and if two gears are meshing, we always have a fixed velocity ratio. V1 by V2, वो जो velocity का जो ratio होता है, that is always constant. But in this case, we can actually vary according to our requirement. Okay, now how it is actually working? Now, when what happens is there is a very phenomenal principle. The shaft actually, or we can say this particular plate, there's a plate, right? It actually comes closer. When it comes closer, what happens? The belt is being lifted up. So when the belt is lifted up, when the belt, actually it was driving like this initially, right? It was driving like this. So what happens when it was driving like this? The belt is engaged with a smaller diameter. When it is engaged with a bigger diameter, the RPM is gonna change, something like this. If you try to visualize, if you want to have a low gear transmission, this is the engine, your left one is the engine, and this is the wheels where we need to transmit. This is the input and this is the output. Okay, so here what is happening is a smaller diameter is having a connection with the bigger diameter, right? So definitely what happens, the we have a low power, we can say RPM will be less, torque transmission will be very high. But in this case, what happens when you are increasing the diameter, you can see when the diameter is in increase, so ultimately what happens, your high gear is being connected and we can easily able to transmit a we can say high amount of power very easily. Now here the problem lies is, normally in a CVT engine, at higher RPM, when you are cruising at 90 or 100 plus kilometer per hour, there is always slight amount of sound coming from the engine, right? But that problem has been rectified by switching from a conventional mechanical belt to a electronic transmission, electronic CVT, eCVT, right? We'll be discussing about that also, right? So now if I talk about how it is working, what is happening is we are having an adjustable pulley, right? And it is actually coming closer. When it comes closer, the belt is being lifted up. You can clearly visualize when the two sleeve is actually coming closer, this belt is moving upward. And when the belt is moving upward, actually the diameter is changing. Or अगर आपका diameter change हुआ कहीं ना कहीं, we can say the torque transmission will be very, we can alter the value according to the requirement. But that was not happening in the conventional gear train. Okay, now if I talk about this, how this is working. So what happens is when we try to apply a force from the left hand side, okay, when you try to apply a force, this particular sleeve is coming closer, and when it is coming closer, the belt is being lifted up, because we are using a V belt, something like this. We are using a V belt. So when it is being this sleeve is coming closer, the belt is being lifted up, and when the belt is being lifted up, you can alter the value of velocity ratio according to the requirement. Now this is that belt. If I say the cross section, I've taken a small cross section. When this sleeve is coming closer, this V cross section is moving upward. This is the one of the cross section of the belt. Okay, this is a steel plate being used in a belt, right? Initially we used to use a polymer for, and that is being used for a small power transmission. Okay, we can use steel, small steel plates connected all together to form a complete steel belt, and near about like we can operate till 600 horsepower of engine we can easily operate by using this particular V belt of steel V belt, right? So when the sleeve is coming closer, this is the sleeve. Okay, when you are applying force on the left hand side, when they are coming closer, this particular belt is coming in the upward, so the diameter is going to increase, effective diameter is increasing. So the diameter is increasing, ultimately can we say the power transmission will be changed, the torque from shaft 1 to shaft 2 will be altered, because we know that tau 1 into omega 1 is equal to tau 2 into omega 2. Okay, so if you are increasing the diameter, you are decreasing the value of omega. If the omega is decreasing, you are increasing the value of torque, and that is basic fundamental of the CVT, that is continuous variable transmission, right? Now if you see how this belt is being made, now we'll be having a stack of lot many steel elements, and will be inside this will be having a flexible we can say belt made up of a polymer, or even a very flexible element, right? So when it is being connected together, we are able to easily have a complete stretch of one belt, which is easily able to when you are trying to push, or if you're trying to push or pull easily the power transmission, we are able to transmit power from shaft, input shaft to output shaft. It is not like this, we can only use steel elements, we can use a connection of this kind of arrangement we can also use. That means we'll be having some steel elements, and they will be connected with some rocker pins. We'll be having some rocker pins. Now when this will be connected, the two belts will be easily able to move. because when you are having a CVT transmission or continuous variable transmission, you need to have a flexibility. If the belt is not flexible, there is a chances of belt get broken down, and if the belt is broken down, the complete system is failed, right? So if you try to see, when all the pins are stacked, like if you see in this particular image, it's being stacked, and ultimately what happens, the rocker pins are moving like this. Okay, so easily we will be able to transmit the power from input to output shot according to our velocity ratio combination. Okay, fine. Now the question is how you can easily move that plate from left to right. Like you see that the sleeve is moving from left to right. How we are easily able to move like this? Previously, if I say from in the initial stages in CVT, we were using a centrifugal bearing. Okay, if you see, what happens is, when the centrifugal forces, when the body is rotating, that particular body will be exhibited by the pseudo force, and the body will be moving in radially outward. Okay, that is a centrifugal force. So when it is rotating, this cylindrical rollers will be moving outwards. When it is moving outward, there is a cap which is being used. So when they are moving outward, this cap will be automatically moving left and right. Okay, fine, right? So what happens is, if you try to attach this when it is rotating, so automatically due to the increased RPM, this particular sleeve is moving left and right. If you are decreasing the RPM, so the cylinders will be coming closer, and this particular sleeve will be moving left. When you are increasing the RPM, the cylinder will be moving away from each other, and definitely that particular sleeve will be coming outside, and they will be coming closer, and ultimately what happens, this belt will be moving upward. Okay, fine. But actually nowadays we are not using this kind of arrangement. We are using a hydraulic oil pressurized segment, because it is actually very effective. In this case, there is a huge problem that there's a noise problem is coming, and you can only operate till very limited RPM. Okay, but if you want to work at a higher RPM, or if you want to work at a high speed or high powered engine, now we are shifting towards we will be having a pressurized oil, and by using a hydraulic pressure, we'll be able to move this sleeve from left to right very easily, right? So this is your CVT transmission, or continuous variable transmission, that we are using for lot many models, or lot many even two-wheelers also nowadays. Because what happens is, when you are working, when you are actually in a cruising stage, or when you are driving your vehicle on a highway, we always try to optimize the efficiency. So we can optimize the efficiency if you're having some variable parameter, and by using the CVT, we are able to easily change our velocity ratio according to our requirement. Okay, right? So now let us talk about what are the different advantages. The best advantage that we have already discussed, if you are using a conventional gearbox in any highway, because of the fixed ratio of velocities, we will be able to have a only limited, like fixed engine RPM will be there. If there's a fixed RPM, we won't be having any variations. That means it leads to inefficiency. It will be, the engine will be running at a only specified speed. But if I talk about CVT, what happens, the gear ratio can be fine-tuned, and so that the optimal fuel air mixture can be selected for a required power. And accordingly, if you are selecting the air fuel ratio according to the requirement, you can alter the, or you can optimize the efficiency in a very great manner. Okay, irrespective of whatever engine you are using or what RPM you are working on, if you are able to optimize one of the parameter according to the requirement, according to the dynamic conditions, definitely this is actually leading towards the optimization of any vehicle, right? So let us talk about what are the different models. There are lot many models. At present, I'm seeing there's a Honda Amaze also. There's a Toyota recently in 2023 only they have launched, and they are using electronic CVT instead of using that pressurized oil. Like in Honda Amaze, we are having pressurized oil CVT, but in Toyota, this recent model, they are using electronic CVT as their power transmission. So I hope you all understood the concept of continuous variable transmission in this video. So if you like this video, please do share to all of your friends, and next time whenever you are driving any automatic power transmission, do have a concept back of the mind this particular video. Okay, so thank you guys, bye bye, take care, stay safe, and enjoy your preparation with BYJU'S Exam Prep. Thank you.